Hey, thank you for being here with the Rundown with Ramon. Today we have an amazing episode for you. Today we talk to Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, who helps educators build businesses. This is an episode you don't want to miss. She asks questions such as, what is your freedom number? She talks about the 3 stages of business, and she talks about what led her from having a teacher salary of about $30,000 or so per year to having over 7 figures for her business. This is an episode you want to see on the Rundown with Ramon, brought to you by Celebrity CEO. If you want to grow your personal brand, you definitely want to join me and check out celebrityceo.com. Download your free Celebrity CEO blueprint at celebrityceo.com. Now stay tuned for the conversation with me and Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. Let's go. Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, who's going to talk to us about her journey in education and being in business. And I can hear them, Dr. Erica, say, there's 2 things. You can be in business and in education. Yeah, we're going to hear about that right now. Dr. Erica, welcome. And I hope you and who's important to you are doing okay today, are doing well today. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for the conversation and just excited to chat about the things that I love, which is education and business. So excited for the time.
I love it. I love it. So right at the top, please do tell us who you are, what you do. Please give a website link, who you are today, before we start to go backwards what brought you here. But I do want people to know right up front who you serve, how you can serve them. Feel free to share who you are today and who should check you out.
Sure. So my name is Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas. I am CEO and founder of EJT Education Group. And through my company, we help Black educators grow 7-figure education consulting businesses. So who we've served anybody who has worked in a pre-K through 16 school setting. So whether you're a teacher, principal, counselor, district administrator, superintendent, higher ed, you all are people, and the things that you do are primed to package into an education consulting business to actually solve a problem within education, but to do it on your terms and creating your own ecosystem through your business. So that's what we help our community and people do. That's the very short version of what we do.
And it's funny, as you were saying, because I'm new to education, meaning I'm a smart guy, but I'm not an education person. I'm like, what? I have a client for you in my family, not the person I mentioned to you when we were offline, but another person who's like an in-house child psychologist, something like that ish. And he wants to have his own business. So I'm like, wait a minute. Dr. Erica's like, yeah, Ramon, that's it.
Yes, those are my people.
I love it. So help us unpack that. Let's start right there and continue. Help us understand, for those who don't know, education consulting, that world. Give me a few more examples of what that means. I know what an attorney is. I know what an accountant is. I know what a mechanic is. I know what a chef is. Talk to me about your people.
Yes, great question. So I'm going to use some kind of like business terminology, since, a lot of folks who are probably listening are in different stages of entrepreneurship. This is language we should be familiar with anyway. So the people that I serve, my target client, are people who have worked in, again, a pre-K through 16 setting, so educators. Because a part of my belief in my story, which we might get into, is I'm really passionate about those who have been on the front lines being positioned as experts within our education sector. And actually, believe it or not, that's actually not the case. So to the analogy that you made, you very rarely would see a consultant come into a hospital that does not have a medical background. You would not see a consultant come into a law practice who does not have a background in legal. However, in the education setting, it is actually the norm that a consultant will come into a school system and has never worked in a school. And to me, I deem that to be incredibly problematic as a former teacher, a former principal, because of the nuances of leading a school, of leading kids, of providing high quality education for kids. There's just nuances that I believe it's important that those who are serving schools and school districts in a consulting capacity have actually worked in schools. So when we're talking about what an education consulting business is, well, consulting means that you are solving problems. And then when we put the word education in front of it, that means that now we're solving problems in the education sector. So let me give you a couple of examples. some of my clients' businesses that they're running, they could be running a business around developing math curriculum, or around developing ELA curriculum, or giving training to teachers or principals, or college prep, college access training. And so again, all of the folks that I serve, they have had some type of experience working in a school setting, and their business is solving a problem within education. And their target client is likely either a student, a parent, or an educator themselves.
That's wide. Okay, got it. So I'm thinking it's just somebody going setting up curriculum. That's one. But what you just said is opening my eyes. And again, those listening who are in education, you may already know this. You're Dr. Erica's people, but those of us who didn't know, we probably have family members and others. So the parent could be a client, check. The
Correct.
student could be a client, check. And the parent's probably paying for it, check. And or the school, the student, the teacher, the principal, anybody in that school. Is that, am I repeating what I'm hearing?
Yeah. So, I mean, and I think that's the beauty of education, but I think that's also the complexity of education, right? Of when we're talking about, providing high quality education to our kids. And let's be real, and I'm gonna be, very frank, as a Black woman, the reason why I'm doing this is because in this country, those who are most likely to not receive a high quality education are kids who look like me, right? And so when we're thinking about like why it feels like such a complex problem to ensure that kids who look like me, Black kids, can read by the third grade, well, that's because there's lots of players. Right? Like the teacher is one person, but there's someone who makes curriculum decisions. There's the principal who's actually setting the culture of the school. There is the secretary, the financial secretary who's over the school budget, right? And so like there's so many players that are playing really impactful roles within the education system, which for me goes back to why it's most important. If you are paying a consultant 5-6 figures to help you solve a problem, to me, it is problematic if they've never worked in a school, right?
Listen, I get you. It's funny how industries are similar. I have a wide range of business experience, and one things I've done is events. So I put up lights under the stage, XLR cable, this cable, that cable, gaffer's tape, staging. So when I hire people, I'm like, I know you're an event planner, but like, you never rolled carpet?
Right,
no,
right.
I've rolled carpet and cut the sucker.
Right.
So I've washed dishes even. So I know a little bit about catering. So, let's start at the beginning, Dr. Erica. What brought you here? What brought you here to be not just in education, but you're an education consultant. You're the professor that has, again, give my metaphors, been to war, and now you're teaching it. Talk to me about that journey. Take some time, feel free, and help us understand where you were X years ago, what brought you here today? Unpack that story for us.
Yes. Oh, wow. That's a great question. So my origin story, when it comes to, my business and what I'm doing today, I would say that there's 2 key moments that I think were pivotal in my story. And the first was actually, I was a freshman in college. So I graduated from The Ohio State University, so I'm a very proud Buckeye.
Oh, and by the way, I was born in the state of Ohio. Let me be clear.
Okay.
Continue on.
Come on, Buckeye energy.
Yeah.
So my very first year at Ohio State, mind you, I was like AB Honor Roll, National Junior Honor Society, like was a great student. And first year in college, I was on academic probation. And I was like, what in the world is happening? Like, I had never experienced anything like this before. And at that time, I didn't have language to put to it. But now, as an educator with over a decade of experience, the language that I put to it is what we call the opportunity gap, where there are some kids in this country who have access to certain opportunities and other kids who do not, and over no right, of no choosing of their own. But in this country, where you live and where you go to school, unfortunately, determines what access you have. So I grew up in public schools. I was a great student. And I had some access. So I had some access to AP courses, which actually saved me in many ways. But in other, aspects, there were some things that I was not exposed to. And so that was like thing number one, where I was like, okay, hold on, wait a minute. Like there's some, what I call now an injustice. At that time, I didn't have this language. I was like, there's something not right. And now I know it's an injustice that like sparked for me this interest in, okay, there's something here that's a problem. Fast forward, I graduated college. I graduated in 2008, which we know the economy was turning. And the plan that I had to actually work for Fortune 500 company, they were not hiring, they were laying off. So I decided to pivot, and that little origin moment story led me to be a teacher. So I moved to Charlotte, North Carolina to become a high school math teacher. I was a high school math teacher, absolutely loved my kids, fell in love with it, that I was like, I absolutely love doing this. And what if I could impact more than just 90 kids a day? Like, what would it look like to like impact an entire school of kids? So I then went on to school leadership. So I became an assistant principal, then was a principal in Charlotte, North Carolina. And the very, very long story short, and one of the things that I always share when I share my story is that disruption always precedes transformation.
Mm.
And so I had a moment of disruption as a principal where it became clear to me, like, I can't stay. And it like broke my heart to come to that decision, because I loved being a principal and I hadn't planned to do anything else. And I was like, well, what am I going to do? And that's when I came up with the idea of, okay, well, let me start consulting, because it will help me figure out what's next, or it can help me sustain financially until I figure out what's next. And the very first contract that I received 6 years ago was for a day of professional development, and I got paid $1,600. Everybody's prices are trash when they start, and I'm not excluded. And for me, that was what I was paid as a principal in 2 weeks. So to make in a day what I was getting paid in 2 weeks, I was like, oh, wait a minute.
And let me just put some context. I know for us professional speakers, et cetera, how you went, maybe trash in a day, but the bigger context, I was thinking that I was shouting 1,600. Yes, because I get it. So I want to underline that one. You got paid as a consultant on your own. So so this should give hope to those listening. As you start out, don't worry about the first number, but continue on.
Right. Just get started, right? Like just get started, because what it proved to me, and what this is what I call the moment that I call a shock sale, where it's like this shock that you receive of, oh my God, someone is willing to pay me
That's right.
for this. And then you start to realize that money could actually move faster, because I thought it would take 2 weeks to make $1,600. And then that first contract taught me that $1,600 could actually move in one day. So then it's like, oh, once I learned that, I was like, the game is over. Right?
You were a math teacher, so you knew where the commas went.
Yes, I was like, oh, game is over. So I ended up growing my consulting business. In the context I didn't share is at the same time I applied to a doctoral program. I only applied to one program because I have rules around how I go to school and the type of student the environment I need as a student. There was only one program that fit my list, and it happened to be at Harvard. And I was like, oh my goodness, I don't know if I'm gonna get in, but we gonna do this, and we gonna set my consulting business to sustain me regardless of what the outcome is. And I got in. And so within 8 months of starting my consulting business, I was able to pay off all my credit card debt, establish 3 months of savings. So come that June, I had packed up a Penske truck, sold all of my furniture, sold my car, and drove 13 hours to Cambridge, Massachusetts to start my doctorate. So I continue to grow my business while I was a full-time student. So that's when folks are saying, well, what if I got a job? I'm in school full-time. I'm either the right one or the wrong one to talk to, because this is the person who grew their business to multiple 6 figures, or either working full-time or in school full-time. And then that's when I was in school, I decided to actually start our business development arm of helping Black educators grow their education consulting business, because I'm like, I just happened to stumble on that $1,600 a day, because if somebody actually told me, it would be a whole different ball game, right? So started that arm of our business right before the pandemic, which now has grown into, we have coaching programs, we have a self-paced course, we do an annual event. Our business has grown beyond the 7-figure mark with an annual revenue. And so it has been a beautiful, beautiful journey. And one thing that I say is actually with me leading a 7-figure business, still the hardest thing that I've done to this day has been a teacher. It's actually easier to run a seven-figure business than it is to be a teacher, which is why I'm really passionate around helping my people create their businesses.
And you still took Ramon's call. I mean, look at that.
Of course, of course.
This is great. This is great. So thank you for sharing that. So let's transition a bit then to the business. Can you talk about, and again, this is a broad question, but talk about maybe some of the 2 or 3 benchmarks of success and what that means for those listening, or we can turn it into the 2 or 3 challenges you had and what you learned from, if you get where I'm going. Meaning, let's talk about the education business, your business. You got into Harvard, you moved, your business grew. What did you do right? And then let's integrate that. What can others learn, whatever business they're in? The daycare person with you, the accounting person with you. Let's talk about that. I'd love to hear what are some things you did right or you did wrong, whichever way you want to go.
Lots of you're right. We can go either way.
Yeah. And we can do a little bit of both. However you want to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the first thing that comes to mind is and I'm trying to think if the best word is like agility or if it's adaptability, because one of the, so I help people start businesses, right? And we've had over 400 clients go through our program. So I've seen a lot of journeys of businesses to where I've been able to see the trends and patterns of what are the typical roadblocks for folks, typical challenges, or what sets folks up to really be able to skyrocket in their business. And one of the most common roadblocks that I see come up for folks in business is they think they've tried everything when they actually haven't. Right. And so that's, I'm like, I don't know if this is agility. I don't know if it's adaptability. If I had more time to think about it, I could probably have a word to like, put a bow on it. But like folks will envision imaginary walls and obstacles that actually aren't there. So when folks ask me, there's a question that I understand when people ask it, but I also hear it as a mindset question or a roadblock when people ask me, well, how do I make time when I'm working a 9 to 5?
Right.
And I understand the question, but the question is actually it's evidence of a mental roadblock, because what I hear is you're not urgent about your business yet. And that's fine, right? But you really don't want it yet, because when you want something, you make time, you find time. And I get it. As someone who has ran a school of 1,000 middle school students and had over 100 people on my staff, I built my business, right? And that meant that I had to be in a season of sacrifice, right? Where I was doing PD on the weekend, when I was doing things in the evening, when sometimes I had to take PTO to go to a conference. You figure it out, right? And here's what I think is the interesting nuance that is often true for a lot of folks that I talk to, is they often have examples of them operating from that sense of urgency for someone else, right? So like the folks who be out here slanging popcorn for the kids, you find time to slang this popcorn for the fundraiser, right? Like you find time to sell these candy bars. And it's the same energy that creates a sense of urgency to get money to pay for the field trip or to pay for the equipment or for whatever for your kids, whether they are your biological or your surrogate children or for your neighbor or for someone at church. It's the same energy to start your business. So for me, I think that is something that I think is a strength of mine, of even when I was managing multiple things. And I will also name that I've been conditioned to multitask in my life.
Which is an asset.
Which is absolutely an asset that I never did not see a way. Like I never was discouraged by the fact that I was working full time or I was in school full time. I was like, all right, then we just gonna do coaching calls in the evening. Like we're just virtual. Like before a pandemic, I'm like, I'm taking the calls on Zoom, right? Yes. So that's a big piece that I would just name, I think, as a roadblock, but also something that I think was definitely a strength for myself early in my business.
Can I give you a silly example of that in my own life?
Come on, let's go.
I'm gonna give you a silly example. Here we go. So I wanting to get to Canada, talk about it. We got friends there. Easy. It's only a few hour drive from where I'm at, Haven't gone. I mean, well, you haven't gone in this example. I get a call from one of our pastors in Canada. My butt's going to Canada 2 days after me and you talking like that. But to your point of, I don't know if to say, but it just urgency, the context, like I could have went to Canada, didn't do it.
Right.
Pastor called. I got all the time in the world. So
Right.
I hope people are getting what I'm saying, but this is so true, because if mom is sick,
Listen.
dad is sick, we'll spend time, we'll take care. 3 years out of our life, 2 years out of our life. And these are, serious things, but you think about it, right? Our businesses I can't step away for a year or 2 or 3 and grind.
Right. Right. And in order to even like, I even want to just pull back to just taking a day off. Like,
or that, yes.
Some people aren't urgent enough, or they're more committed to their 9 to 5 than they are to their financial freedom or their business or whatever. Because how that shows up is that you are hesitant to take a day off when actually you could be making more money in your business in that one day than actually that job is paying you in that one day, right?
1,600.
So that's why and that's for me why I get really, really passionate about helping my people make money. And one of the things that I teach my clients is the freedom number of what is the number that you have to make in your business that will replace your salary in your job. And it's not a 1-to-1 ratio, because businesses have expenses and taxes and all those things. But what is that number? And you need to know that number, and that needs to be your goal, because the moment you hit that freedom number, it changes the power dynamic between you and your job. Because let me tell you, the way a supervisor tried to talk crazy to me, the same week I made $10,000, I was moving real different, right? Where I was like, it's fine. I went out, didn't feel any kind of way. I was like, you know what? Don't even worry about it. Right? It's a shift, because, and I think that's what some of us are not aware of, is how our financial dependency on our organization is actually keeping us playing small, right? Like how it's getting in our way, because how many of us have, whether we thought or we've actually said, well, I don't want to say that or do that at my job, because what if I lose my job, right? If you build a business that now becomes your source of your financial, independence, it don't matter what's happening at your job, where there's a level of freedom now that you can move with. People ain't going to talk to you any kind of way. You ain't going to be stressed out, because at the end of the day, I don't need this job.
That's right.
I don't need it. And when we need something, that's when we are bound, and we start to silence ourselves in certain ways. So,
and it gives you an emotional security too. The not needing it, which is the same thing probably you're saying, is an internal just strength. I don't know, like the guy or gal who knows jujitsu, martial arts, another silly example, but they're not picking fights and saying, who it's like, sir, no problem.
Right.
Not even.
Right.
So another thing, hearing you say, the Tabitha Brown, the author and the Hollywood actress, so another famous person, in my understanding, threw some shade at her or a husband or something. And the meme, you may have heard it, was she said, "That's okay. We just gonna pray for them." And everybody was like, "Oh," she just was like, "That's okay." So one more time, Dr. Erica, I have a few more questions, but can you give us your full company name again, who you serve website one more time as we're here on the Rundown with Ramon? Please give that again.
Of course. So Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, my company, EJT Education Group, we serve Black educators to help them grow 7-figure education consulting businesses. And you can learn more about us at our website at www.getlaunchconsulting.com. You can also reach out to me on Instagram, which is mostly where I hang out, at E_Jordan Thomas without the hyphen. Again, that's E_Jordan Thomas.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for that. And I got a lot of people who I'm going to be sending your way in my family and without, for sure. So, and you said some of it already, the freedom numbers. Oh, can you recap the freedom number one more time? And then the other question I want to ask, as people are coming into your program, working with you, because I'm sure what you're going to share is the same business, not business 101, but is going to help anybody, whether they're working with you or not, is my guess. But the freedom number, can you unpack that again as a for example? I'm my daughter, You know, her name is Charity. She's all public out on the internet, so I'll just use her name. She's Charity. She makes, you know, whatever she's making as a private school teacher. Let's say she's making whatever. She's making her money. And you're saying, Charity, what do you need? And she says 200 or 100. Let me have you say, just recap that, what that number means again, how that works.
So I'll give you an example. So when I was a teacher, believe it or not, my salary was $33,000. And so what I teach my folks is that they need to know their freedom number. And in my example, that freedom number is how much money would your business need to make in order for you to be paying yourself $33,000?
That's important.
That number is not a one-to-one ratio. And I think that's where a lot of people who are starting businesses start off on shaky foundation, because they assume, oh, if I want to pay myself $33,000, my business just needs to make $33,000. And it's like, no, if we're going to set it can, but you go set up some messy foundations in your business in order to set a healthy foundation to build and grow from. There's certain financial structures you need to have from the beginning, such as allocating for expenses, i.e. saving for taxes and all those things. So that freedom number is the number that your business would need to make in order to cover your current salary.
Got it. Got it. And which could be, these are, again, forget everybody, ignore the math I'm giving, but as an example, raw numbers, let's assume taxes of 20%, probably wrong, but expenses of 20%, whatever, you may need your gross, which is just the floor of Dr. Erica and I already know her heart, $75,000, your first year in business, maybe, whatever it may be, to pay yourself $40,000. Am I on the right?
Correct.
Correct. You got rent, you got your cell phone, all the other stuff for business expenses, but to put in your pocket, you need multiple times that.
Right. And I think why this is so important and why I teach my folks to do this from the beginning is because when I talk to folks who have a 6-figure year, but they tell me they can't afford to hire a virtual assistant, I'm like, okay, well, from the beginning, you weren't building a reserves or appropriately allocating for expenses. And allocating for expenses means not necessarily I got to pay the expense now. It's actually building a reserve such that as your expenses increase, you already have the cushion to be able to hire a virtual assistant, versus now you got to find, well, where am I going to get the extra couple $100,000 from every month in order to hire a VA? So that's why it's really important to me, for the folks that I work with, that we are building healthy, profitable businesses. Yes, you need to make money, but then we need to be talking financial structures. We're also talking legal structures, because we're not just out here building hobbies, we're building companies.
Where did I find you at? Man, I need 1,000 more Dr. Ericas. All right. Not in closing yet, but as we're reaching towards the end, and feel free, I always ask anything I didn't ask you, wanted to share. This has been so great again. Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, please do see where she's at, Get Launch Consulting, and all the things that she offers. Definitely follow her, and those who are in education and or those you know. That's what's getting my head thinking. I'm not in education, not a fit for Dr. Erica's business, but you know what? There's a number of people I'm thinking in my church and others who are educators and teachers. So, and beyond. So definitely keep that in mind. Can you walk us through, and if it's the same thing, let me know, no problem, but somebody starts with you, your program, you directly, whatever you want to take it. How does it start? And one, you already told us one freedom number, but can you kind of walk us through, Ramon? Somebody spends 6 months with me, 3 months, a year, whatever the scenario you want to plan with me. Here's what it may look. Here's what I need to teach them. Here's what they're going through, or here's what I have to have them stop doing. I don't know. Is that a fair question? Can you help me paint a picture? Okay.
Absolutely. So we have 3 programs that each serve 3 different stages of folks.
Okay.
And we built our programs to be able to stay with folks from the beginning all the way to growing them to a 7-figure business, right? Okay. And part of what I think it's important, and we have conversations about, is that there is stages of a business, right? Yes. And this is why one of the best preparation that I've had for being an entrepreneur is being a former teacher and a principal, because as a principal, I know that there's also stages of a school, right? And so there's an analogy that my head always goes to of the stages of a business to the stages of a school, because there's turnaround in terms of the stages of a school, or it could be if you're opening a new school, right? Your infancy. There is, the growth stage of a school where, all right, we've gotten some stability in some areas, but now we actually have to grow some of our infrastructure. And then there's actually now a sustainability stage where all cylinders are firing. And now we have to just maintain the momentum of the business. Or now we're going from good to great. And so similarly, there's stages of a business, and we're thinking about the 3 stages of a business prior to the 7-figure mark. The way that I've outlined it is there's the experimenting stage, where when you haven't made any money yet, or maybe you've made a couple $1,000s, you have to experiment in your business. And most of the people that I attract people who are often like me, right?
Okay. And who is like you? Let's hear this.
My people are often overachievers, type A, struggle with perfectionism, right? And when you struggle with perfectionism, and this is often the case for those of us Black folks who have had to work in systems that were not created for us. We had to be perfect, right? Like we had to be our biggest inner critic, because we could not be positioned for someone else to critique us, right? So because of that, many of us struggle with the idea of experimenting, with the idea of giving ourselves permission to not know the answer. When someone comes to me and they're like, well, should I work with parents or should I work with kids? I'm like, I don't know, do both, get an offer, get a contract for both, and then let's talk about it. Like, we'll figure out what you learned, what you like. Like, you just have to do some stuff.
Yes.
And that the piece that I tell my folks is you can't think yourself into the answer. You just got to act into the answer. So that stage 1 is the experimenting stage. And for our folks, we have a self-paced course that gives them all the information that they need in order to package their offers, in order to lead sales calls, in order to write proposals, that allows them to experiment in order to get clear on what are your core offers, what is your starting pricing, and who's your target client, and then to get an idea of what your key messaging is going to be, because those are the foundations that we need in order to move into our hybrid coaching program to help you actually now grow the infrastructure around this. So when I say grow infrastructure, now we need to build your team. Now we need to automate your business. We need to systematize your business. We need to get some of the foundations of these financial structures and legal structures in place. And that is the vision in order to get you to about the $500,000 mark, $600,000-$700,000 within annual revenue. And then once you cross the $500,000 mark, now you got to be a CEO. Like you was a CEO before, but there are certain CEO now types of moves where your business, the growth of your business, and this is what I call the scaling stage now, the growth of your business is going to be dependent on your team. Where
you motivating your team, I guess, leading the team. You're not doing ClickFunnels anymore, Facebook ads. You're motivating the team. Yeah.
Yes. Where now you are like, even if we were to take my business as an example, this is 2023. So 2019, it was me and a VA. And even in 2020, it was me and a VA. Today, I have 4 employees. I have a 5th that is in her 90-day probationary period. So should everything go well, and God willing, it will, she will be our 5th employee. And then I have a 6th team member who is a contractor.
Right.
So I think that's the behind the scenes that we don't always talk about in the business, where I am actually not the only one doing client delivery. I can't be. Like, I have to have a team supporting client delivery. I cannot tell you the last time I sent a contract, I sent an invoice. And again, my brain, being a former principal, it was the same thing. Because as a principal, I'd be like, I can't tell you the last time I did discipline. Because I don't suspend folks. I got somebody else who does that. Because I knew as a principal, my primary responsibility was ensuring high quality instruction. And not many people in the building could do that, but I had a number of people who could do discipline, but not everybody can give feedback to the assistant principal and to the coaches. Same thing as a CEO. My responsibility is bringing money in the door. So it is not the best use of my time to be sending a contract. It's not the best use of my time to be scheduling stuff on social media. That's why I have a team for that. So those are the 3 stages: the experimenting stage, the growth stage, growing your infrastructure, we're growing your team. And then the scaling stage is when we're moving you to a CEO and having those CEO habits, actions, and minds, and we're pouring gas on your business. Now we need to drive more traffic into your business to help you grow.
Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, this has been an amazing discussion. You are a breath of fresh air. You're welcome. Anything I didn't ask you, and again, I feel I can talk to you for hours, but anything I didn't ask you, anything like, Ramon, before we go, one more thing, and if not, it's no problem. Anything that you wanted to add before we conclude?
Yeah, I think the only thing that I would add is it is actually harder, and this is for my education folks, because I think, and I don't know if you've come across this in your circles with other entrepreneurs or people who are aspiring entrepreneurs, but there's almost like this like bubble around entrepreneurship, and it's this like mystical air of how hard it is, or like people seeing entrepreneurship as this like, oh my God, now I'm responsible for like how much I get paid, and what if, is it going to be consistent, and am I going to bring money in the door? And I think the final thought that I just want to leave folks on, and particularly if there's any educators listening, is that it is actually harder to teach a child how to read than it is to make money.
I agree.
And so,
and why do you say that? I have an answer. We may be the same, but I'm curious if you can one more level. Why do you say that? Why is that?
Because I think part of a lot of the work, and when I first started my business development arm of the business, I underestimated the mindset work that was necessary to help support people in growing their business. And I say that because part of making money is literally, the first step is literally your beliefs of being able to just do it. Right. And I think people have to examine their relationship with money in order to be able to do that type of work and to be able to actually believe in themselves and their abilities to make money. But what's wild to me, going back to the conversation that we were having before, where it's like 9 times out of 10, you've made money before. Now, it might have been for somebody else, but you've made money before. But now all of a sudden, when we make money for yourself, it's like, oh my God, I don't know if I can do it. You're making somebody money right now. Right. And so that's why I say that making money is actually easier than teaching a child how to read. And for my education folks, they're probably like, oh my God, yeah. And I wasn't an elementary teacher. So like, I was a high school math teacher, with somebody would be like, well, I know that was hard. And making money is easier than teaching high school math. But I say that because of all the nuances and complexity that are involved in actually teaching children, making money is actually easier.
Yeah. I got that. And I think for me, the perspective I'll add to that, I think, and thank you for that. I think I need to take a few minutes to hone in on this, but we'll see, is that with the entrepreneurship, as you said, mindset, I'm battling myself. Yesterday, I had a low period. Now, everybody listening to this, please don't DM me and email me. Ramon, what's wrong? Ramon's here, and he's obviously fine contextually. Back, I had a few hours. It was Netflix, chill, sitting in a dark room, spinning a chair. Don't know if I shed a tear, but I was like, really? I'm here interviewing you? Fine. Meaning, so you and I have learned to come out of ourselves, if that makes sense, what I'm trying to share with the people. So meaning that's one. I think I'm battling just myself, which is possibly, if you agree, let me know. If you disagree, no problem. But better than a child. I got to get inside their head. Me, it's my head is harder. And then 2, I think also is that I don't know. It just seems like you can figure it out easier. I'm just battling ClickFunnels, not a 4-year-old or a 14-year-old, or whatever the software. It's challenges, but dealing with somebody else's businesses. So. But
yeah.
But Dr. Erica Jordan Thomas, for the 37th time, and I like to do this because people forget, people don't hear, people don't listen. I love to add intense value. Please, one more time, share with us the best way to reach you and those especially who are educators and others who are like, you know what, Ramon, I'd like to start a side or full-time business. Obviously, Dr. Erica can help you, and or those who have people who can do it. And I hope you have heard today just business ideas and strategies. This freedom number is important. This aspect of the stages of business, this is applicable to all of us in business in one way or another. But Dr. Erica, one more time, give us your website and whatever you like to share as well.
Yes, you all can reach me on our website at www.getlaunched with an ed consulting.com. And I hang out mostly on Instagram at _Jordan Thomas. Again, that's E as in Erica _Jordan Thomas without the hyphen.
Love it. Dr. Erica, thanks for being here on The Rundown with Ramon. This is Ramon Ray, everybody. You can get to know me better at RamonRay.com. If you're hearing the sound of my voice and you want to be on The Rundown with Ramon, you don't like something, you like something, you just want to say hi, just email me, Ramon@RamonRay.com, or DM me. And people like Dr. Erica, although she's been the best to date, we have on The Rundown with Ramon. Thanks for listening. And again, this is Ramon Ray.